Good morning, this is Stan Bauer. Yes, here we are down in Dallas, Texas, Dallas-Fort Worth. We're having a great time down here. Oops, I gotta get rid of this thing. This is a follow-up trailer to what we sent you a couple weeks ago. So thanks for watching. So it's Stan Bauer, CBMC, Dallas-Fort Worth. I want to tell you about, we're trying to reach 7.6 million people in Dallas-Fort Worth. And let me tell you folks, that's about 3 million men we're trying to get. It's hard to do. And some of these guys don't know Christ, some do. So the ones that do know Christ, and it takes time, after the initial transformation, what we work on, how do you transform a culture? It is one man at a time. That's what we're doing. It's a long, laborious work. So there's a great verse we want to employ today. Romans 12:2, it says, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, so you can test and approve God's good and pleasing and perfect will." So what I want to do, folks, is introduce you to the guy to my right. His name is Phil Carlson. Now listen, I met Phil maybe 18 months, 12 months ago, right?
24 months ago.
24 months ago. And that is a great thing. So I want to ask you a question, okay, Phil? Tell the group out there how we met, when we met, and where we were when you met, and then what happened in the process to get you to April 1st of 2019.
So I've been involved with just going to some CBMC things in Dallas-Fort Worth in the past, going back to 2008. And I was actually working for a nonprofit at the time, doing ministry work. But my impression back then with CBMC was basically retirees Bible study. And I hadn't been in years. And in fact, a man who'd been a friend of mine, had been a local leader in CBMC, had passed away. And I decided I was going to go check it out again. This was summer 2019. And so I walked into a C3 meeting over at IHOP in Plano, and I thought I was running late, and it turned out I was actually early, but I ended up getting to meet some guys, and then one of the last guys to walk in is a guy wearing a cowboy hat, Stan Bauer. First time I ever met him. And so he invited me, I think he kind of invited me to a big event over at the Texas Motor Speedway.
That's right, we did, yeah.
And before I knew it, I was sucked in. And
what'd you say at the Texas Motor Speedway?
So, I mean, this is so clever, right? That Stan's saying he finds out a little bit about me. He finds out I'm already a believer, and says, "Well, I need somebody to share his testimony there, so I want you to come and do it, and I'll cover your ticket." So I ended up coming. It was one of those things I couldn't really say no now, so I'm in, and I was surprised to see a number of younger guys there. I was like, this is not the CBMC I'm used to. And then some weeks later, I come to Stan's house for Saturday night at the movies, and I see a whole bunch of guys who are under 40 there. And I'm thinking, this is not CBMC the way I've always known it. I didn't know CBMC had younger men in it. And so I just couldn't help myself, couldn't really understand why, but I just kept coming to things, just one thing after another. And, I was trying to raise money for the ministry I was running at the time. My wife and I started a 501c3 back in 2012, and so we were hurting at the time. But I wasn't getting any money for months. I just kept coming anyway, though. And I was thinking, okay. Eventually, I realized in hindsight, I was finding something I needed, and it wasn't money. It was something a lot more important.
So when did I ask you to get into Operation Timothy?
So you didn't actually.
Okay.
You were telling me, Phil, you ought to be working with me. And I kept telling you no. And then finally I said, all right, I'm interested in maybe working with you, but I have no business working for CBMC unless I know what it is you're selling. So I need you to take me through Operation Timothy. And so we started in the late fall of 2019. And I was loving it. And it was right around the same time I was starting to realize God was not calling me to continue my work at SMU, where I had been doing campus ministry for years, where I was working with the administration, had a job there, And I just had concluded I needed to leave that job. And I was becoming more and more interested in CBMC. And now it was starting to become a question, is this going to be straight up my job? Where I would leave the 501c3 my wife and I had started, leave the job at SMU and just go full on with CBMC. And the reason why wasn't just a financial decision. It wasn't. The most important part was I saw CBMC, as Stan was practicing CBMC here in Dallas-Fort Worth, I saw in it what I had been looking for years. I had been doing research as part of a PhD. I was doing research on missions movements and the early Protestant missions movements and this kind of stuff. And I saw almost no one was doing the things that I was researching, even though I saw these were really successful. But I saw in CBMC Dallas-Fort Worth, it was doing it.
What is, let me ask, I'm interrupting you, but what is your educational background with undergrad and SMU and graduate work?
So I did my undergrad at SMU. That I actually became a Christian my freshman year there. And so I graduated from there in 2004, went back in 2014 to do a Master of Divinity degree, finished that in 2017. And then from 2018 to 2019, I was a PhD student at Regent University. And then the fall of 2019, I had actually started to do a degree program, a Doctor of Theology at Evangelical Seminary. And it was during that time where I started to realize, number one, my education was going to have to stop. And number two, I needed to rethink the whole direction I was going with my career.
How did you decide to get involved with CBMC and join us on April 1st of 2020, right?
My wife saw what was happening in my life, and she said, well, I want that in my life. So Phil, just like you have someone discipling you, and this wasn't even more than a few months in to Operation Timothy. This was very quick. She said, I want that. And then we looked up CBWC and discovered, well, it's not even in Texas. So the question was, well, then what do we do? Well, Phil, you should ask Stan. All right, I'll ask Stan. Stan said, well, I had an assistant who was helping me out in St. Louis, and she is discipling women, so maybe you can connect her. All right, let me get her information. We did that. Christy has been meeting with her for, I guess, well over a year now, over Zoom. Tina Wesley. And so that has just been impacting my wife's life so much that she then took what Tina was doing in her life and started reaching out to a young woman that we used to work with years ago.
Where does she live, this other young woman?
Upstate New York, Rochester.
Okay. Go ahead.
And so Christy starts doing Zoom meetings and phone calls.
Timothy.
Going through Operation Timothy with this young woman. And they just start talking. And then within just a few months, that young woman in Rochester, New York, leads another young woman to faith in Jesus, one of her coworkers. And so she has been discipling her for several months now.
So what your wife has lived out is 2 Timothy 2:2. And the things you heard me say in the presence of many witnesses, entrust to reliable men who are also qualified to teach others. So it goes down to Paul, Timothy, reliable men, and others. We go down to 4 generations. So Christy is already doing that, and Phil and I are trying to do that down here.
Yeah.
So now go to April 1st of last year.
So April 1st of last year, I started as a field partner with CBMC in Dallas-Fort Worth. And Stan told me I had 6 jobs. Disciple men, disciple men, disciple men. Raise money, raise money, raise money. I was better at the first one than the second one. But I just really was focusing on that. Now I've got, I guess, 8 or 9 men, might be more than that now, who are either in Operation Timothy or leading up to some kind of discipleship relationship or in one. And so, but that all started then. One of those guys, the very first guy I started taking through it, Richard Burkhart, he's already starting to take another man through Operation Timothy, and he and I just finished book 1. So we're about to start book 2 together. And I've been watching some crazy, wonderful things happen in the lives of a number of the men I've been meeting with now regularly, taking through Operation
So
Timothy.
could you attest to the fact that you've seen some transformation in the hearts of the men you're with?
Absolutely. Absolutely. One guy who's just been going through a lot of hurt, at the same time I've been watching him just grow in so much maturity in the Lord. he's been handling crazy things that I'm not even sure I would handle well. And he's handling it very well. There's another guy who's an SMU student. He was really going through some hard challenges intellectually while he was a student. And he ended up really getting some tools where I saw him not just handling things better than I did when I was a student, but actually going further and really being a leader and making some impact. Another SMU student, a guy who actually connected me to that guy. Not only has he been just really impacted as I've been meeting with him, well, he ended up getting connected with Stan, and now he's working for CBMC.
Oh, who's that?
That's JT Martin. So
he's our research and development guy, right?
That's right.
So this is the transformation that has come back to Phil, and we do this one-on-one. And it takes time, people. It takes time. And this is where you get involved in the work of seeing men transform. So we need your help. And I want to illustrate one fact to you, that not only has Phil been transformed in his spiritual life, but he's also being transformed in his cultural life. So the first thing I'm going to show you that. One thing, yeah, the old cigar. But here's the other thing. As you know, yep, Phil and Stan, his complete transformation right there. We got another 40 years of work down here in DFW. So Phil, thanks so much. And ask him about that infamous pipe he has sometime. I just want you to know. Take care, God bless, and we'll see you the next time, right, Phil?
Sounds good.
Bye.